That's fine.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar with us today. I'm Wei Jing, the Technology Commercialization Program Director in Nebraska Business Development Center. Today, we will have our presenter, John Kim, the NIH SBIR Sttr Program Manager, and he will introduce the NIH SBIR Sttr program and also more funding opportunities from there. I will mute you guys during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type your question in the chat box. We'll have the Q&A session at the end. You can also hold your question until then. The webinar will be recorded if you have to leave early, and we plan on sending out the recording and the slides after the webinar. Okay, now I will pass it to our presenter, Kim. Please.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is JP Kim. I'm one of the program managers here at the NIH, and actually I'm going to be talking with you about the SBIR and Sttr funding programs. And let me just hold on a second here. There we go. So basically, what this agenda basically gives you a roadmap of what we're going to be discussing over the next hour. We'll start with a program overview. Then we'll talk about program specifics, give you a little bit of information about reauthorization updates, talk about solicitations and funding opportunities, in other words, how to find the funding opportunities, a little bit about how applications are reviewed, the peer review process here, transitioning to the marketplace, and then the Q&A at the very end. Right? So why don't we get started? Well, the most important piece of advice, as you can see, that we tell everyone is that you need to talk to a program officer about your application and submit early, basically days, not hours and minutes. Basically, a program officer can be your best friend with respect to help navigating you through the the path towards them getting getting an SBIR Sttr award. Program officer, we have contact information on our website at sbir.nih.gov. And if you have questions about who to contact, just email my office at sbir@od.nih.gov, and we can direct you if we hear what your technology is. So as I noted earlier, the NIH SBIR Sttr website is sbir.nih.gov. Very easy to remember that URL. It's actually very well organized. You can see on the left-hand side there's a drop-down basically talking about funding, applications, review, policy, technical assistance, resource, statistics and successes, and engage and connect. Engage and connect is basically the contact points and how you can reach out to different ICs as well as to our office with respect to any questions you may have. A very useful infographic or useful piece of information we have on our website is this SBIR Sttr application process infographic. Basically, it distills down the process of getting an application. Coming up with your idea to actually applying to the program. So it actually sort of does establish a roadmap as to how you can go through this and what things you need to consider. So for those of you who don't know, the SBIR and Sttr programs, they're congressionally mandated programs. As you can see, it's a set-aside program for small business concerns to engage in federal R&D with respect to the research actually has the potential for commercialization. In fiscal year 2016, the set-aside was 3.0%, and fiscal year 2017, it's 3.2% of our budget. We also have the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, which is actually a set-aside program to facilitate cooperative research and development between small business concerns and U.S. research institutions, again, where the technology or the research has potential for commercialization. The set-aside for that is 0.45%, and it actually has stayed steady in 2016 and 2017. So we've talked about the SBIR and Sttr program briefly. So the SBIR, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, actually purpose and goals. It's to stimulate technological innovation, as you probably knew. It's basically helping to promote the use of small businesses to meet federal R&D needs, and fostering and encouraging participation by minorities and disadvantaged persons in technological innovation, and through the increased private sector commercialization commercialization innovations derived from federal R&D. This was actually established in the Small Business Innovation Development Act of 1982, and it was actually reauthorized through fiscal year 2017 by Public Law 112-81. Just so you're aware, the SBIR program actually has been reauthorized for another 5 years as of this, as a recent signing by the President. The STTR purpose and goals, the Small Business Technology Transfer Research Program, is actually to stimulate and foster scientific and technological innovation through cooperative research between small business concerns and research institutions. It's supposed to foster technology transfer between small businesses and research institutions, and this was actually established in the Small Business Research and Development Enhancement Act of 1992, also reauthorized by Public Law 112-81, and also recently reauthorized again for another 5 years. Just so you're aware, the budgets we're talking about, actually quite, can be quite substantial. Basically, this particular slide talks about different budgets by agencies that participate in the SBIR program, and this was in 2015. As you can see, the Department of Defense actually has $1.07 billion in SBIR funding awards, and the NIH is part of the Department of Health and Human Services, and so overall we had $797 million in SBIR funds. One of the things you should note here is that the Department of Defense, the NASA, and some of the ones in blue, those actually are funded through contracts, whereas the ones in green are funded through grants or cooperative agreements. And the NIH actually, ours is predominantly 80–90% in grants, in grants. Right? So here actually is a breakdown of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. As I said, it was some 770 million, of which the NIH SBIR program is 763 million, and we have an STTR program of 114 million. Remember, these are two separate set-asides, the 3% for the SBIR and the 0.45% for the STTR. CDC also has an SBIR program, 9 million, and the FDA 1.55 million, as is the ACL and ACF, which are other agencies under HHS. For those of you who are not aware, the SBIR program, you can actually look at it as a 3-phase program. The phase 1 is actually focused on feasibility studies. It's discovery, as you can see. The budget is that under phase 1, you do feasibility research, and it's $150K for SBIR and STTR. And the project period which you do the research, is for 6 months for an SBIR and up to 1 year for an STTR. Then, under phase 2, we consider that full research and development, and you can get up to $1 million under the SBIR and the STTR programs over 2 years. And please note, that's $1 million over 2 years as opposed to $1 million per year. However, we do also have the phase 2B competing renewal award, which is actually also R&D. This actually addresses clinical R&D and complex instrumentation and tools to FDA. Many, but not all, of the NIH ICs participate in that, and this varies, varies amongst the institutes and centers at the NIH, and it can be $1 million per year, up to 3 years. So, unlike the phase 2, where it's $1 million for over 2 years, this can be $3 million, basically. As I said, $1 million for up to 3 years for each of those 3 years. Finally, when it comes to commercialization, that's considered phase 3, the commercialization stage. And NIH generally is not the customer of these technologies, and so with respect to that, we don't actually have SBIR dollars to spend with respect to supporting phase 3. However, we would encourage our SBIR awardees to consider partnering and developing the exit strategy early for that. Okay. Now, with respect to applying, the SBIR eligibility criteria is that the small business needs to be organized as a for-profit U.S. business, needs to be small, obviously by name, 500 or fewer employees, including affiliates. The work must be done in the United States with very, very few exceptions. And individual ownership can be greater than 50% U.S. owned by individuals and independently operated, or greater than 50% owned and controlled by other business concerns that are greater than 50% owned and controlled by one or more individuals, or could be a concern which is more than 50% owned by multiple venture capital operating companies, hedge funds, private equity firms, or any combination of these. And please note, eligibility is actually determined at the time of award, not at the time of application. So certain things you can actually get in place by the time of the award itself, if you are in fact approved. Now, with respect to Sttr eligibility criteria, the applicant itself, as noted earlier, it's actually an application where a small business concern is working with a nonprofit research institution. However, even in this case, the applicant is the small business concern. What happens here is that there is a formal cooperative R&D effort, whereas the small business must do a minimum of 40% of the work. That is a minimum of 40% of the work. And the U.S. research institution must do a minimum of 30% of the work. A U.S. research institution is defined as a college or university, other nonprofit research organization, such as Scripps, and also it could be a federal R&D center. One of the things under an Sttr, we would expect that there's an intellectual property agreement between the small business concern and the research institution. Basically, the IP agreement discusses or addresses the allocation of rights in intellectual property and rights to carry out follow-on R&D and commercialization. In other words, to make certain that the technology that is funded under the funding award is able to move forward. So here's actually a good table which notes the critical differences between an SBIR and an Sttr awards. As you can see, under an SBIR, with respect to partnering, SBIR permits partnering, but is not required. Under an Sttr, it requires the small business to be partnered with a nonprofit research institution partner. Okay? Under work requirements for the SBIR, the guidelines is that may outsource 33% of the work under Phase 1 and up to 50% of the Phase 2. In other words, the SBIR, the small business concern itself, must do about 67% of the Phase 1 work and at least 50% of the Phase 2 work. Under the Sttr, the minimum work requirements is that the small business must do at least 40% and the research institution partner must do at least 30% of the work. And then the remaining 30% can be actually apportioned out to both of them or even to a third partner. Under the SBIR, with respect to the principal investigator, the primary employment, or greater than 50%, must be with the small business. Under an Sttr, there's a little bit more flexibility. The PI may be employed by either the research institution partner or the small business. And as I noted earlier, even in the Sttr, basically an award is always made to the small business. Okay. Important facts to remember, what I actually mentioned earlier is that eligibility is determined at the time of award, not at the time of application. And some folks think that because we're the NIH that a PhD or an MD is required, for the research project. The PD, the program director or the principal investigator, is not required to have a PhD or MD. The PD or PI is required to have expertise to oversee the project scientifically and technically. So it doesn't necessarily require the PhD or an MD. For example, in software development, maybe an engineer is actually, very well versed and has the expertise to oversee the project scientifically and technically. Applications may be submitted to different agencies for similar work, but of course, awards may not be accepted from different agencies for duplicative projects. So it could not be actually double funded or double dipping, I guess some people might say. So now that you've heard a little bit of an overview, let me give you a little bit more with respect to program specifics of the NIH. So with respect to everything we fund, the NIH mission is to seek fundamental knowledge about the nature and behavior of living systems and the application of that knowledge to enhance, to increase health, lengthen life, and reduce illness and disability. Basically, we have 27 institutes and centers here at the NIH, of which you can see that the bottom 4 of the, on the chart there, Fogarty International Center, the NIH Clinical Center, the Center for Information Technology, and the Center for Scientific Review, none of those actually would be doing any funding because they do not have funding authority. However, the other ICs actually would be doing funding. Here's a little bit of a breakdown with respect to the budget allocations under the SBIR. As noted earlier, for fiscal year 2016, it's 3% set aside. And as I said, this year, fiscal year 2017 is 3.2% set aside. However, I will note that we're under a continuing resolution, so we don't actually have the budget for 2017 yet. But under the 2016 budget, at 3%, we had $763 million for the SBIR program, and at 0.45%, we had $114 million for the STTR program. As you can see, the NCI, NIID, NHLBI basically, had the largest allocations for the SBIR programs. So, with respect to the three-phase program, we talked about this earlier, and basically let's talk about it a little bit more with respect to phase 1, phase 2, phase 2B, and phase 3, and how these things work. So, as I noted earlier, phase 1 is feasibility, and phase 2 is full R&D. But we also actually, so when you're applying, you can actually apply to the phase 1 first, and then phase 2 comes after that. But we also have something called a fast track, which you can apply for phase 1 and 2 simultaneously. So simultaneous submission and review of both phase 1 and 2. The phase 1 is awarded, and when milestones and aims of the phase 1 are assessed by the program staff before phase 2 is awarded. One of the great advantages of the fast track is that basically it's continuity, and you don't lose your momentum in research. Because I'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but one of the things that people actually wonder is how long does it take from application to actually get an award if, in fact, you actually are successful in your application for an SBIR award. So it takes, I think the quickest, I think, would be actually from the time of application to time of award would be 6 months. So if you think about this, if you do your phase 1, if you apply for phase 1, you complete it, and you get your results, then you have to apply for the phase 2. There's at least a 6-month time lag there. However, if you do it under the fast track, what happens is once you've completed the phase 1 research and you provide the milestones and aims, and those are assessed to be acceptable, you could actually start doing the phase 2 research probably within a matter of maybe 3 weeks or so. So it actually cuts down the lag time considerably. So there's also a program we have which is called Direct to Phase 2. This is only in the SBIR program, not actually related to the STTR. It basically bypasses the Phase 1 grant in the sense that what has happened here is that you must have completed your Phase 1 type R&D, your feasibility research, to move directly into a Phase 2. Please note, there are separate funding opportunity announcements for the Direct to Phase 2, and not all the NIH institutes and centers participate. So with respect to the Phase 2B Competing Renewal Award, basically you need to be an SBIR STTR Phase 2 awardee, and this is for technologies that require extraordinary time and effort to develop and often require FDA regulatory approval. This is the one, as I noted earlier, which is awards of $1 million for up to 3 years, so that could be $3 million in research. ICs must accept these competing renewal applications, and only particular ones, as you can see, are listed that do. And so what you should do is you should contact the NIH SBIR program staff to discuss. So another research award that we have actually is a pilot program. It's called the Commercialization Readiness Pilot Program. Basically, we actually have we have 2 offerings for this. The PAR 16-026 is just for technical assistance, and PAR 16027 is for technical assistance and late-stage development. This actually can range from up to $300,000 up to $3 million for up to 3 years. Basically, under the Commercialization Readiness Pilot Program, or the CRP, the CRP may fund work that is not typically supported through the regular SBIR STTR Phase 2 or Phase 2B awards. This could include preparation of documents for FDA submission, development of an intellectual property strategy, IND-enabling studies, doing clinical studies, manufacturing costs, regulatory assistance, subcontracting work to other institutions, including contract research organizations, or a combination of these services. For example, there are some limits to the amount of work that must be done by the small business concern under the normal phase 2s. However, under here, you can actually, fund more subcontract work under contract research organizations, as an example. So if you're interested in more information about that, we do have that available. The webinar slides and transcripts and of a webinar we had in December 2nd of 2015. And please note these PowerPoint slides will be available to you as a PDF, actually, I think after or during this presentation, if you do not already have them. Now, some people actually wonder about, what are the chances of getting funded? So grant success rates. Well, if you look through here, we have a chart here of grant success rates by phases. As you can see, under fast track, it's about 20%. You see the SBIR and STTR. Under phase 1, it's about 15, 16%. So that's sort of close. Phase 2, as you can see, is actually closer to 30 to 40%. And a regular phase 2 is actually 37, 36%. And then direct to phase 2 is back to 19%, and a phase 2B is 38%. So if you're looking at that, you may be wondering, how does that direct to phase 2, why is it so down at 19%? Well, because it actually, here's one thing you might consider is that because they actually have bypassed the phase 1, in other words, they already had their phase 1 research done before, but they didn't have a phase 1 award, they may not be as familiar with the programs. So this is actually their first time applying. So 19% sort of corresponds to sort of, shall we say, the phase 1 where you're first applying to the NIH. The phase 2s, as you can see, are usually follow-ons to phase 1s. In other words, people who've already had experience applying to the NIH and understanding the program, talking with program staff. So those rates actually tend to be higher in the 30 to 40% range. And as I noted, the phase 2B is similar, where they have actually already engaging in discussions with the program staff, and so they're familiar with what the needs of the IC are. Here's actually just grant success rates in general with respect to numbers, and these reflect what was in the chart before. And these are available online as well. So now let's talk a little bit about reauthorization updates. So under the 2011, basically the reauthorization, the SBIR program, the phase 1 actually, it used to be 100,000, but now it's actually 150K. And under phase 2, you can get up to $1 million, as I noted earlier, for up to 2 years. There are certain hard caps. The 150 and 1 million, actually, you can actually get up to 50% more. You can apply for up to 225,000 or 1.5 million under phase 2. There is a possibility, actually, to get SBIR awards over 225,000 for phase 1 and over 1.5 million for phase 2. Again, what's called a hard cap waiver, but it's the agencies, not the applicants, who actually have to request this waiver from the Small Business Administration directly. So the SBA, the Central Office of the Small Business Administration, has approved a topics list which allows budgets to exceed the hard caps as long as the project topics are on that list. So there is a pre-approved topics list in Appendix A in the regular topics document that we have online, and the approval is good for the 2016 SBIR STTR Omnibus and any FOA that falls on the topic list, including the Directive Phase 2 FOAs. So venture capital companies. So venture capital companies are small business concerns that are majority owned by multiple venture capital operating companies, hedge funds, and are private equity firms. Those are now eligible to apply to the NIH and CDC SBIR programs. To make that clear, I'm sorry, there's small business concerns that are, in fact, owned by these VCOCs. If you want more information on this, you can see our notice at OD-13-071. And basically, with respect to the VCOCs, forms are available online. And please, these can also be used for SBIR contracts as well as for grants. So one of the other new things that actually has happened since 2011 was the switching between SBIR and STTR programs. Basically, the SBIR and STTR applicants may now switch programs at phase 2 or 2B to any active SBIR STTR solicitation. So we have 4 examples there. which means that Phase 1 STTR awardees may apply for an SBIR or an STTR Phase 2. So probably, giving the best example that, for example, an STTR, a small business concern and a research institution or university, they're working on a project. And then what happens is when it comes, then they complete that project. And at Phase 2, the small business concern doesn't need the university any longer. So what it would do is it would apply for an SBIR Phase 2 as opposed to an STTR Phase 2. So that is what it means by being switching programs from, as I said, from an STTR to an SBIR. Please note that not all the NIH institutes and centers accept Phase 2B applications, so you actually have to be aware of that with respect to when you're considering switching. So the next topic on the agenda is actually solicitations and funding opportunities. Basically, how to apply, how to find the types of research that we would that the NIH would fund. So what you should be aware of is that all applications must be submitted under a funding opportunity announcement. So on our website at sbir.nih.gov/funding, this actually lists the various funding opportunity announcements an SBC, a small business, can apply to for under the SBIR and STTR program. The first thing you should be aware of is the Omnibus Felicitations. Those are actually the parent FOAs. As you can see in the first entry there, it's the SBIR PA-16-302 or STTR PA-16-303. This was released in June of 2016 and has standard due dates of September 5th, January 5th, and April 5th. We will be releasing the new one actually in which will be in June of this year for September 5th, January 5th, of April 5th of the following years. But under the 2016 solicitation, there's still an April 5th application due date. So those are the ones that you would be applying under this Omnibus solicitation or parent FOA. We actually also have SBIR applications under contracts. That was under program solicitation PHS 217-1. It's for SBIRs only, and that was released in August of 2016, and that closed on October 21st of 2016. And so what will happen is our contract solicitation should go out around this summer as well. One of the things you should also be aware of, if you're looking for funding opportunities, there's something called the NIH Guide for Grants and Contracts. Basically, it provides weekly receipt dates specified in each FOA. It actually provides opportunities and of funding opportunities of individual SBIR and STTR FOAs, as well as other opportunities that the NIH offers with respect to funding research. One of the things you should be aware of with respect to the NIH Guide, it comes out with shall we say, a table of contents every Friday. So if you wish to subscribe to the listserv so that you can receive that, then you can be right on top of things when the funding opportunities are announced. So you'll be aware of them week by week, as opposed to having to search for them whenever you felt the need to. You can, like I said, you can get a table of contents so you know what we're looking at each week. So with respect to descriptions and research topics, here's some of our ideas or suggested topic areas: biodefense, biosensors, nanotechnologies, biocompatible materials, health IT, imaging devices. These are all things that the NIH actually has, looks for bidding on the institute and such. But you should understand that your ideas, otherwise known as investigator-initiated R&D, we are actually looking at, very interested in what you are coming up with. So research projects can be related to the NIH mission, or the ones we are interested or need to be research projects related to the NIH mission, and other areas of research within the mission of an awarding component itself. With respect to our document, we have a descriptions and research topics document. You can actually pull that up and do a keyword search in the solicitation by hitting Control F, and basically looking to see if there are certain things that match your area of expertise and which institute or center actually is funding in that. As I noted earlier about the NIH Guide for Grants and Contracts, it's actually funding opportunity announcements actually will be published, and they talk about the high priority areas for each of the ICs, and it actually also identify the various ICs that will participate in each of those funding opportunities. You have to be careful, basically, or cautious as you're reading it. There are some nuances because there are various due dates Each funding opportunity announcement may have additional review criteria. There may be limited funds, and there could be varying project periods for completing the research under those particular funding opportunities. But you could look under those, as I said, for these are considered targeted funding opportunities. So with respect to the omnibus versus the targeted funding opportunities, here's some of the differences that you should be aware of. The omnibus one, for due dates, it has the standard due dates of September 5th, January 5th, and April 5th. The targeted ones could in fact have the standard due dates, or it could be customized due dates. So they could actually differ. They could have additional ones or different ones completely. Under the omnibus, actually for review, the SBIR and Sttr panels are at the Center for Scientific Review here at the NIH. Under the targeted FOAs, review is actually either handled by panels at CSR, or it could be an SBIR Sttr panel at the institute or center. With respect to the omnibus and application instructions, you need to follow the SF424 R&R and the SBIR Sttr application guide and the annotated form set. For targeted FOAs, you would also follow the SF424 R&R, the SBIR Sttr application guide and annotated form set, and any additional instructions in the published FOA. So you need to read the funding opportunity announcement very carefully to determine what might be different. So you're aware with respect to standard due dates. As I noted earlier, we have the September 5th, the January 5th, and April 5th. We used to have other due dates, but the current SBIR Sttr standard due dates are September 5th, April 5th, I'm sorry, January 5th, and April 5th. With respect to applying, you actually need to submit electronically. So SBIR Sttr grant applications and contract proposals must be submitted electronically. Registrations are required, and so you need to know that basically there are 5 registrations and you need to start early, because it can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to complete all your registrations. So if you're coming on the April 5th date and you have not even registered with these 5 systems, then basically you will miss the deadline. So you should start the registrations process as soon as possible. So the 5 different registrations you need to be applying to the SBIR program here at the NIH is you need to have a DUNS number. You need to be registered with the System for Award Management, otherwise known as SAM. You need to be registered with grants.gov, with the ERA Commons, accompanying all your program directors and PIs. The ERA Commons is actually another NIH system. And with the SBA company registry at sbir.gov. Basically, it's like, as I said earlier, these 5 registrations, you need to complete them all, and they can take 6 to 8 weeks to complete, so you need to actually start early. Oh, and if you're already registered with all of these, I believe the only one that actually requires an annual renewal is the System for Award Management, so you should be certain that your registrations are still active. So there's also a very helpful NIH grants registration infographic online, which you can see, and again, when you have access to these slides. And for contracts, you would actually be submitting proposals with the electronic contract proposal submission website. So with respect to applying to the NIH for the grants and such, we actually have something called Assist, which is a new submission option. As you can see, you can apply system to system, or you can use downloadable forms, but Assist actually basically will help you to sort of address the usual problems or hurdles that most folks actually face. Use of Assist is optional, it's not required, but it does actually help to streamline and address the more common errors that we've actually seen. So basically, as you can see here, you can apply online using Assist to the left there, or apply using downloadable forms. Just so you know, with respect to the NIH late submission policy, it was issued in December 2014. Now there's a 2-week window of consideration after the application due date for all grant applications. And SBIR Sttr previously had a 1-week window. It supersedes the old policy, but you really should avoid having to even worry about the late submission policy, and basically apply on time, if not earlier than, of course, the due date. Okay. So you're aware there are certain, certain criteria that, for example, what is a woman-owned small business? We actually, are interested in women-owned small businesses and socially disadvantaged businesses to apply to the program. So with respect to women-owned small businesses, that the firm must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women and primarily managed by one or more women who must be U.S. citizens. The firm must be small in its primary industry in accordance with the SBA's size standards for that industry, and the small businesses must self-certify on the SF424 R&R form, the application form. There's also the socially and economically disadvantaged business. The firm must be 51% or more owned and controlled by one or more disadvantaged persons. The disadvantaged person or persons must be socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged. The firm, of course, must be small according to the SBA size standards and also self-certified by registering your business in the System for Award Management, in other words, SAM.gov. So the next part of the agenda, we're actually going to talk a little bit about review, how the application is basically evaluated. So if we look at the NIH peer review process, here is actually how the process goes. If you look at the left here, the applicant initiates the research idea, talking with the program staff. The small business concerned confirms its eligibility, and then what happens is they submit their SBIR Sttr grant application to NIH electronically through ERA or grants.gov. So they'll be talking with the help desk as they need. Once it's received, the NIH Center for Scientific Review assigns to the Institute Center and the IRG and by the referral office. The scientific review group reviews or evaluates it for scientific merit, and then the advisory council or board recommends the approval at the IC level by program staff. The IC staff, if approved then, the IC staff prepare the funding plan for the IC director, and the program staff and grants management staff are involved in that. Then the IC allocates funds, and finally the grantee conducts the research. All goes well, everything flows that way. With respect to the new applications, I had made reference to this earlier about the timings. You can see the due dates, the scientific review, the council review of the IC, and then the award date, the earliest award date. So, for example, if there was a due date of September 5th, it would actually hit scientific review in October or November of that year. Council would review it in January or February, and the earliest award date would be March, would be about 6 months. So that's basically how the timing issues go. Now, some of the most common problems in applications is apparently that there's no significance. In other words, what happens is the proposal, the grant proposal, addresses an unimportant problem, or is unconvincing case for commercial potential or societal impact. It's possible that it's inadequately defined a test of feasibility. There's a lack of innovation. That's another, problem. Diffuse, superficial, or unfocused research plan actually can be an issue. Questionable reasoning in an experimental approach, and a failure to consider potential pitfalls and alternatives can be a problem. Lack of experience with essential methodologies, unfamiliar with relevant published work, and unrealistically large amount of work proposed for what they're seeking funding for. So just to reemphasize, as we, I think it was the first or second slide here, is the most important piece of advice is you as a small business applicant, you need to talk to an HHS program officer about your application, as soon as possible, and submit early, days, not hours or minutes. Again, the program officer, can be your best guide in, getting you through the process or the pathway or the roads here. And the program officer contact information can be found on the SBIR.nih.gov website under Engage and Connect. Again, if you have questions about who to contact, email our office at sbir@od.nih.gov. So now let's talk a little bit about transitioning to the marketplace. Basically, it's like, so we do actually here at the NIH have technical assistance programs. I know that we don't actually, fund phase 3 commercial with, SBIR dollars, but we do actually help companies cross what's called the valley of death. Basically, that period between early stage technology and market-ready technology. And so we have two programs, as you can see on the bottom there. We have the Niche Assessment Program, which is actually for phase 1 awardees, and we also have the Commercialization Accelerator program. So basically, under our technology technical assistance programs, the niche assessment program is actually run by our office through a contractor, Foresight Science and Technology. What happens is basically they help to identify other uses of technology, determines competitive advantages, and develops a market entry strategy. Again, it's for phase 1 awardees, and basically, if you think about it, it's like a marketing, like sort of a marketing assessment that's provided. And a niche assessment program or Foresight will actually provide that to you, sort of a give me a fish type approach. The Commercialization Accelerator program, or the CAP program, is for phase 2 awardees. Basically, we have a menu of technical assistance or training programs in different areas: strategic business planning, FDA requirements, technology evaluation, manufacturing issues, patenting and licensing issues. Basically, what this program does, it helps to build strategic alliances, facilitates investor partnerships, and there's individualized mentoring and consulting for each of the small businesses. This, as I noted earlier, the niche is more of a give me a fish. The Commercialization Accelerator program is teach me to fish type approach. And so, as I noted earlier as well, it is for phase 2 awardees and helps them to learn the business of commercialization, or helps enhance their own knowledge of commercialization at that time. So if you're new to the SBIR Sttr program, basically you should actually consider, if you're interested in NIH HHS funding under the SBIR program, you should actually consider the HHS SBIR Sttr annual conference. We just had a conference in Orlando, but if you're looking towards 2017, we actually are having our 19th annual conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It'll be November 7th through 9th of 2017, and it actually holds, brings a lot of people from the programs here at the NIH and the funding ICs, as well as CDC and FDA. So there's a great opportunity for you all to, meet the program officers, learn about all the different aspects and dimensions of the program, SBIR and Sttr program at HHS, and make some very valuable networks and connections. So for more information, this is our office. Basically, the 5 of us actually here at the NIH Office of Extramural Research. Dr. Matt Portnoy is our director, program coordinator. My colleague Rob Vincent and myself here are program managers, and our statistician is Dr. Julie Beaver, and Patty Swain is our communications specialist. So if you're looking for more information, as I said, the website is really fantastic opportunity for you to learn things, but you should also consider subscribing to the SBIR Sttr listserv. You can email listserv at list.nih.gov with the following text in the message body, which is subscribe SBIR-STTR in your name. As I noted earlier, another way to get connected is to subscribe to the NIH Guide for Grants and Contracts, so you can get that weekly notification of all funding opportunities for SBIR and not for SBIR, but you'll know all the different areas we're actually looking for research to be done. You can also follow us on Twitter, and you can read our NIH SBIR Sttr notable successes on our website, connecting with us, and you can always email us questions at sbir@od.nih.gov. Well, so there we are. That's actually the presentation for that. So now why don't we open it up for any questions you all might have, and hopefully you actually got some valuable information out of that. So I'll leave it to Wei in the Nebraska Development Center. Any questions?
Thanks, John, for giving us this great webinar. So any questions, please type in the chat box so we can ask John here.
I'm not seeing any, but I do have this question, John. This is Rick.
Okay, Rick.
In BDC. Yeah, when you talked about the budget and this year and last year, I always get confused. So whether you're talking calendar year or federal year, so there is funding until when?
Oh, yeah. Basically what happens is, fiscal year 2016, that's the, fiscal year 2016, 2017, I'm sorry, we're in fiscal year 2017, I guess. Basically, what happens is we do have funding through the year. Actually, we were reauthorized, for, the SBIR Sttr program has been reauthorized for another 5 years, I believe. And what happens is, however, you probably heard that what happens is that we don't have our appropriations yet.
Right.
For this year, we're operating under continuing resolution. So basically what happens is we're supposed to operate under the same funding levels that we were working under last year. So we do have those set-asides actually set for the SBIR and Sttr program for this year, and we will be funding. So if you're wondering whether we have monies for small businesses, yeah, yes, we're actually we do have that.
Woohoo! Okay, good. I've got a question here from Morris Jones. Are there any program officers in the Omaha area, or are they all in the DC area?
Well, with respect to NIH, yeah, they would be, they're depending on the IC, basically, it's like NIH actually, we have, most of our program officers are here in the Bethesda, Maryland, Rockville area, but there are some ICs that have, offices or sites, shall we say, and other things. For example, NIEHS, National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, they're actually in North Carolina, and NIID actually has research labs here in Bethesda, Rockville, as well as like Montana and the like. However, with respect to the SBIR program, the NIH itself doesn't have one in Omaha. However, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they actually, probably have divisional or, offices there, so you might actually be able to find additional contacts through the SBA office in that particular region or district. And that would be actually, you can look it up at sbir.gov, www.sbir.gov. So that would be the SBIR program, the SBA website, the central SBA website.
And just, Morse says thank you. And just to add a little more detail there on your answer, John, we here at the Nebraska Business Development Center have an active contract or an active grant that provides for the services to small businesses that are provided by small business development centers throughout the United States. And that again, that's an SBA contract. And then that's part of Way's job and my job here too is to assist businesses to get to the SBIR Sttr funding.
Absolutely. Sorry, I forgot to mention that as well. And I should also note that even though I'm talking about NIH, there are other federal agencies that actually do the they have the SBIR programs as well. So I'm not sure. There might be some other federal agency SBIR offices or contacts in Nebraska, but again, that's not my area. I just know NIH and HHS. All right.
And that's why we invited you. Way is very knowledgeable about where all the program officers are, and certainly encourage you to weigh in on this. Nope.
Hi, John. I have a question here as well. Can you talk about the road tour this year? We have the SBIR road tour last year in Omaha. Mm-hmm. So what about this year's plan?
Well, that's good. That's a good question. Basically, the SBIR Road Tour is actually something that was initiated by the SBA, and what happens is we actually get on a bus, interestingly enough, like rock stars, I suppose, basically, and we tour the tour the United States. So what happens is they basically break it up into different regions, like Southwest or Mid-Central and such. And so we did come out to your area last year. The plans for the this road tour, they're still talking about at the SBA, but they actually haven't managed to nail down the cities and dates. So I think that they're in the process of engaging the different states to basically see if they can actually, as I said, nail down appropriate places and venues to be able to actually have the road tours to those particular states and cities again. That is actually something more that is organized by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and we are just one of the many agencies that actually participate in that. But yes, as you noted, we did actually have the great good fortune to be able to come and see you all in Omaha, Nebraska this past year, and it was actually very actually enlightening to see the research that was there. But you would actually need to keep an eye on the SBA.gov website or talk with the SBA, and I can actually provide you information as we get more information. But I believe they're still working on the road tour for this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you, John.
Wade, just to emphasize the answer to Morris Jones' question, are there program officers, that road tour is the opportunity then, although it only comes annually, hopefully annually. We'll find out for this year. But to have a face-to-face meeting with the program personnel from many different agencies. So it certainly is something, if you are interested in meeting with program people, that's something to keep your eye out for. Well, Morris has another question.
Well, by the way, just
go ahead.
before that, I was just going to say, like, yes, we do. So we do constant outreach. I mean, for example, this webinar is one of them. And as I had noted earlier, the annual NIH or HHS SBIR Sttr conference, which we'll be having in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is actually an incredible opportunity of, to learn more about the NIH programs and meet the program officers, because we have program officers from most every IC here at the NIH that participates in that one. There is another program that the NIH has, which is actually the NIH Regional Seminars, which there's one in New Orleans, but that is actually not SBIR focused. It's actually basically on program administration and grants administration. And so that one actually, we do have my director, Dr. Matt Portnoy, I believe, will be presenting at the, I think it's in May, in New Orleans. But again, as I said, that's not SBIR focused, that's more just NIH research grants focused. And there's just that one session on the SBIR. But, those are other opportunities of outreach that we engage in as well.
That's
okay,
terrific.
So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah,
so go ahead.
That's terrific.
Question?
Yeah, Morris has another question.
Sure.
Morris is interested in the Sttr SBIR grant program. Are there any grant areas that address technology use in the sciences, or are most of the grants related to hard scientific research?
I'm sorry, you have to forgive me, technology use. What's the difference there?
Well, I'm gonna, that's the information I have available to me. So let's wait. Let's see. I'll tell you what.
Okay. Well, I can. Well, Morris, why don't you actually type a little bit more so that you can help? But in the meantime, I'm going to answer a little bit from what I think you're asking.
Hang on, John.
Oh, sure.
I've unmuted Morris. Morris, are you willing to chat?
I am. Thank you very much. Very informative presentation, and am interested as a technology provider in applications of technology, i.e. cloud solutions, in accessing scientific data via the cloud into a scientific research arena that may be distributed around the nation, or are the grants related to or directed toward hard scientific research, say at the molecular level or cellular level, along those. I'm a technology provider.
No, that's fine. I think basically it's like it varies. I mean, at the cellular level, that's sort of interesting to say it that way. But I think that basically what happens is, SBIR Sttr grants from the NIH, basically there has to be research, right? There definitely has to be research. It's not just basically, setting up a company or, doing this. There actually has to be research associated with that. It does vary, actually, the different levels of what types of research we actually do fund. And so that's why it's actually very advantageous for you to talk with a program officer. If you, for example, if you had a technology that is infectious diseases, or HIV, you would actually want to speak with the NIAID program officer who's, for the SBIR program there, because they may actually have particular things. What you're talking about, it sounds like, Morris, I'm not sure, but it sounds like you're talking about a platform technology. Is that correct?
Yes. My company has platform capability and research for, amongst the platforms available. So yes, correct.
So are you actually trying to get some, companies to adopt your platform, or are you actually doing biomedical research, using your technology or involving your technology to try to enhance your technology to, to help the biomedical mission, shall we say?
Great questions. Thank you. And that directs the focuses the question. My company would be a enabler of technology within the scientific arena. It would be an applier, a facilitator of technology.
Interesting. So So I'm not sure it's you're doing the research. It's like again the research. Yeah, the research component is important. So yeah, you'd have to actually there has to be a research component to it. So that hopefully that does answer your question, because it's okay. Good, very good. Any other questions? Especially with Morris unmuted, he can keep asking.
Oh, I just muted him again.
Oh, sorry, Morris.
We don't have that many people. We could unmute everybody. We just don't want everybody talking all at once. But let's give it a shot.
All right.
Okay, that didn't work. I muted you.
That's all right. Why don't we? Okay.
Unmuted.
I guess that seems like if we've answered all the questions. I mean, we don't want to push people to ask questions that they don't have, so that's fine. If you want, you can always email us at, as I said, sbir@od.nih.gov, or you can email me directly at jpkim@nih.gov. If you have any other questions, and of course, Wei, you can also contact Wei if you have any questions with respect to the local region, because I'm certain they actually have, as they said, great opportunities and networks there as well to actually help enhance the development of small businesses.
Terrific. Wei, you want to wrap it up?
Thank you for this great webinar. So. I don't have any questions, so thank you, John.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we wish you everybody luck, great luck, and great success as you guys move forward in bringing your technologies forward. All right? Thanks very much. Have a great Super Bowl weekend. Take care.